Have you ever felt like you're sending messages out into the universe and getting nothing back? Like you're pouring out your heart in prayer, asking for guidance, crying out for help, or simply longing for a sign, any sign at all, that you are seen, heard, and remembered? And yet the heavens feel vast, silent, and empty? It's a profoundly isolating feeling, isn't it? This sense that maybe, just maybe, God isn't listening, isn't paying attention, or is in some baffling way simply ignoring you. It's a struggle that can gnaw at the edges of faith, leaving you feeling adrift in a sea of unanswered questions and unaddressed pain. You look at your circumstances, the persistent problems, the unmoving obstacles, the relentless difficulties, and you wonder, where is God in all of this? This feeling of being overlooked or unheard is a common, painful part of the spiritual journey for many. But what if that feeling isn't the whole story? What if what you perceive as divine silence or indifference is simply a matter of perspective? One of the greatest storytellers of the 20th century, J.R.R. Tolkien, the mind behind the epic sagas of Middle-earth, offers a perspective that might just transform how you view these moments of perceived divine silence. He would suggest that the feeling that God is ignoring you doesn't mean you've been forgotten. It might just mean you're currently living through Chapter 3. And understanding what Chapter 3 means in the context of a larger story can change everything.
J.R.R. Tolkien understood the power and complexity of a grand narrative like few others. His legendary works, particularly The Lord of the Rings and The Silmarillion, aren't just simple tales. They are vast, intricate histories spanning ages, filled with countless characters, interwoven plot lines, and a profound sense that every event, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant, exists within the context of a much, much larger story. He saw the world and life itself not as a series of disconnected incidents, but as a sprawling epic narrative penned by a divine author, Eru Ilúvatar, the ultimate creator in his mythology, a clear parallel to God. Now, think about a long, complex book. It doesn't just jump straight to the climax on page 1. It starts with setup, introduces characters, establishes the setting, and slowly builds the conflict. And then there's Chapter 3. What often happens in Chapter 3? The initial pleasantries are usually over. The protagonist might have left home, they've encountered their first real challenge, or the true scale of the journey or threat is starting to become apparent. Things are getting complicated, difficulties are arising, the path forward isn't clear. It's the part of the story where you're deep enough in to feel the weight of the plot, but nowhere near the resolution.
Tolkien's insight, applied to our spiritual lives, is that our feeling that God is ignoring us often comes from the fact that we are experiencing life from within Chapter 3 of our own personal story, or perhaps even Chapter 3 of the larger human story God is writing. And when you're inside Chapter 3, you only have the perspective of that chapter. You see the immediate problems, the current obstacles, the battles being fought right now. You don't see Chapter 10, where the turning point might occur. You certainly don't see the end, where everything is resolved and makes sense. From our limited viewpoint, stuck on the pages of our current struggle, it can absolutely feel like the author has forgotten about us. We are in the thick of the plot development, and the resolution seems impossibly far off, or maybe not even planned at all. We see the immediate pain, the unresolved conflicts, the unanswered questions of this chapter, and we interpret the lack of immediate, dramatic intervention as indifference or absence from the author. But the author, the divine writer of the entire epic, exists outside of Chapter 3. He sees the whole story. He knows how the events in Chapter 3 are setting up things for Chapter 7, how the characters are being tested and developed for their roles in the climax, how the seemingly insurmountable obstacles of this chapter are necessary to reveal strengths and catalyze growth that wouldn't happen otherwise. From his perspective, things are happening. The plot is moving forward. His hand is at work, not necessarily by ripping a page out or fast-forwarding, but by weaving the events of Chapter 3 into the fabric of the complete narrative.
Think of characters in Tolkien's own stories. Frodo and Sam in Mordor feel utterly alone, insignificant, and abandoned by the larger world and its powers. They are deep in their most difficult chapter, but their struggle in that chapter is the very heart of the story's progress. Their endurance, their small acts of faithfulness, their relationship, these are the plot unfolding, vital to the eventual outcome, even if they can't see the armies gathering at the Black Gate or the future destruction of the ring from where they are. Aragorn spends years in the wilderness, a king in exile, seemingly sidelined. He's in a long, difficult chapter of waiting and preparation. From his perspective, it might feel like his destiny is being ignored. But this chapter is crucial for forging the character necessary to eventually claim the throne. Tolkien's deep faith taught him that God is the ultimate author, not a cosmic problem solver who swoops in to prevent Chapter 3 from ever being difficult. Instead, he's the one who writes the entire epic, who is present within every chapter, guiding the overarching narrative and using even the difficult parts, especially the difficult parts, to shape the characters and move the story towards its intended, good, though perhaps unexpected conclusion. The feeling of being ignored isn't proof of God's absence. It's simply the limited perspective of someone who can only read the current page of a divinely authored masterpiece. You're not being ignored. You are actively, though perhaps painfully, living out a crucial chapter in a much larger, purposeful story.
So how does this powerful narrative perspective from Tolkien apply to your life right now, especially in those moments when you feel God is ignoring you? Maybe you're in the midst of a long, drawn-out struggle, a health issue with no clear end, a job search that yields only rejections, a family conflict that seems insurmountable, or a period of deep spiritual dryness where prayer feels like talking into a void. This is your Chapter 3, or maybe Chapter 4 or 5. It's the part of your story where the plot is thick, the challenges are real, and the resolution is nowhere in sight. And it feels like God is ignoring you because you, like any character within a book, cannot see the chapters that come after yours. You can't see how this period of waiting is building resilience you'll desperately need later. You can't see how this specific obstacle is preparing you for a future opportunity. You can't see how the quiet endurance you are practicing now is a vital thread in the overall narrative God is weaving for your life, and perhaps even for the lives of those around you. Understanding that you're in Chapter 3 offers a different way to relate to the feeling of being ignored. It doesn't necessarily make the pain disappear, but it reframes it within a context of purpose and unfolding narrative. Firstly, it encourages endurance. If this is just a chapter, it means it is not the whole story. The book continues. This period of difficulty or waiting or silence is not your forever state. Knowing this can provide the strength to turn the page, to take the next step, even when you can't see what's on the next page. Frodo didn't stop in Mordor because it was hard. He kept taking one more step because the quest wasn't finished. Your Chapter 3 will eventually end, and Chapter 4 will begin.
Secondly, it calls for trust in the author. Even if you don't understand why this chapter is necessary or why the plot is unfolding this way, the perspective that God is the loving, wise author reminds us that the story is being written with purpose. Your current difficulty isn't random chaos that God is failing to notice. It's part of the intentional, though often mysterious narrative He is crafting. You don't have to like the plot twists, but you can choose to trust the one writing the book. Thirdly, it shifts your focus from waiting for a dramatic intervention to looking for the plot development within your current reality. Instead of asking, "Why isn't God fixing this?" you can start asking, "What is happening in this chapter? How is this situation shaping me? What small mercies, unexpected moments of beauty, or quiet strengths are appearing that might be the author's subtle hand at work within these pages?" Just like looking for clues in a mystery novel, you can look for the subtle signs of God's presence and work that are part of the unfolding story, even if they aren't the bold, immediate answers you hoped for.
Fourthly, it reminds you that your choices and actions within Chapter 3 matter deeply to the story. How you navigate the difficulty, the attitude you choose, the faithfulness you display, the kindness you extend even when you are suffering, these aren't just things you do while waiting for God to act. They are part of the story God is writing through you.
Your courage in this chapter is a theme being developed. Your perseverance is strengthening the narrative arc. Your trust, even when you feel ignored, is a testament to the author's goodness. Feeling ignored by God in difficult times is a real and painful experience. But Tolkien's narrative perspective offers a lifeline. You are not forgotten, you are not sidelined, you are simply in a crucial, challenging chapter of a much larger story being written by a masterful, loving author who sees the end from the beginning. Your task is not to finish the book today, but to live faithfully, trustingly, and with courage within the chapter you are in, trusting that the author is good and the story is ultimately leading somewhere redemptive and purposeful.
This idea of being just in Chapter 3 can be both comforting and challenging. It's comforting to think that our struggles have a place in a larger story, that they aren't meaningless pain. It's challenging because it means we might have to endure the current chapter rather than getting an immediate skip to the end. What chapter do you feel you're in right now in your life story? Are you in a difficult Chapter 3? Where things feel complicated and God seems distant, or perhaps a long Chapter 5 of waiting, or maybe even the beginning of a new Chapter 1 after a significant ending. How does thinking of your life as a book written by a loving author change your perspective on the difficulties or silences you're experiencing? Does it offer a different kind of hope, not just for an immediate fix, but for a meaningful narrative? Share your thoughts and reflections in the comments below. Let's explore together what it means to live faithfully within the chapter we're given. If Tolkien's perspective on life as a divinely written narrative resonated with you, please give this video a like. It helps us know what topics are meaningful to you. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the notification bell so you won't miss future videos where we connect timeless wisdom, faith, and the power of story. Thank you for joining this conversation and for sharing your own journey. Remember, your story is still being written, and the author is good.